Cool. I can find them. There we go. Okay.
I'm Dr. Dawn Buckingham, State Senator for District 24, and I am running for the Land Commissioner.
Hello, my name's Dr. Tim Westley. I am running for Texas Land Commissioner. I am a husband of 27 years next month, a father of 3, grandfather of 3.
You know, this office is so incredibly important, from being, again, the tip of the spear in defending oil and gas and our history. Those are the obvious places, but also our border, and then helping our students, our veterans, and stewarding our state lands are all incredibly important things I'm very passionate about in the state.
As a veteran issues have always intrigued me. That was one of the reasons I got onto the campaign trail back in 2015-16 for U.S. Congress. I'm a former U.S. congressional Republican nominee 2 times over. And it was veterans issues that grabbed my attention then, and it was veterans issues now.
You know, a lot of people don't know what the General Land Office does at all. So we actually predate the governor by about 8 years, because after Texas had lived under its Six Flags, we had to know who owned what with all those Spanish grants and Mexican grants and all of that. So we became the keeper of the maps, which meant we were the guardians of Texas history. We steward 13 million acres. We're the largest mineral owner in the state. With the revenues that we generate from the state lands, we fund education and veterans.
The land commissioner is going to be overseeing those things. In addition, when we think about natural disasters, for example, Hurricane Harvey, the land commissioner's office is going to be working in conjunction with places like FEMA and HUD to make sure that funds that are coming in federally are going to be dispersed properly, so we can make sure we get Texans back on their feet after natural disasters. I mentioned the Alamo. Overseeing what's taking place at the Alamo is going to be a major function with the Land Commissioner's office, making sure we not only protect those monuments, such as the Alamo and the cenotaph, but we also protect history along the way.
Well, we have a lot. We have the revisionist history movement. That's going to be, I think, our biggest fight. We have a lot of room to improve in our disaster recovery. You know, when I'm down in the areas stricken by hurricanes, there are people who are 4 years out that still haven't been able to rebuild their homes. So there's a lot there. Then, of course, we know that we are the land of the free because of the brave. We can't do enough for our wonderful veterans. So between the Veterans Homes and the Veterans Cemetery and what we do through the Veterans Land Board, we help a lot of Texans.
I would say when we consider our border, that's one of the greatest challenges, because as I've traveled throughout the great state of Texas and engaged with constituents throughout, one of the major issues they ask about is the border. We have 1,254 miles of southern border. Much of that 1,254 miles is going to be private land. However, we have a few 100,000 acres that's going to be public lands. And so they're concerned about that. And people will look and say, well, that's at the southern border. How does that affect us? As I was running for Congress, one of the things I would tell people, it affects every citizen that pays taxes.
Well, we're in charge of the Alamo, so that's a big important fight. I think everyone's aware of the book with the big red X through the Alamo. You know, I was proud to have thrown down the legal challenge that kept the cenotaph where it should be, out in front. I was proud to be the primary author for the only legislation that passed to protect our monuments, markers, and medallions this last session. But it's a fight that we're going to have to keep fighting, and we need somebody who's not afraid to stand up and fight that fight.
Have a huge role, because ultimately the land commissioner has a huge voice in what takes place, which direction everything goes when it comes down to the Alamo and the cenotaph, working in conjunction with, of course, the city of San Antonio and other officials. And so we saw the debacle, or I would say the problem that took place with respect to reimagining the Alamo, the land commissioner's office. All one needs to do is just Google Land Commission Office or GLO and Google the Alamo or cenotaph, and you will see floods of stories that are coming out.
Well, critical race theory was banned by the state legislature. Of course, it's going to be vigilance on the local level that's going to keep it out. Unfortunately, right now, we are constitutionally required to give a certain percentage of the interest that we generate to fund public education. Then, of course, there's the university fund as well. So right now, I'm unaware that the General Land Office has any discernment in how those funds are spent. It's just our constitutional duty to provide those funds.
When we think about the permanent school fund, we have to understand the flow of money. As I mentioned, we're talking over $50 billion. The flow of money, much of that's going to go from the Land Commissioner's office, it's flowing to TEA, the Texas Education Agency. Flowing from the TEA, eventually it's going to flow down to the school districts. And so by all means, as I've told people many times in the past, the Land Commissioner's office is not only a platform, but the Land Commissioner has to have that voice to speak for we the people. That voice should be able to say, if you're teaching critical race theory, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the funding that you've been receiving is either delayed or stopped.
You know, a lot of people don't know the first section of the border wall was actually a flood control levee project down in the valley. So where there's a will, there's a way. The state is currently building additional miles of wall on state lands where it's easier. We're having some problem where the federal government has taken land along the border through eminent domain, and they're not giving it back currently. So we're looking at other options for that. But on state lands, we have a lot of control.
As the next land commissioner, how can we disincentivize them? We know again that there are hundreds of thousands of acres that we are managing as the GLO. Why not work with legislators, because this is going to be a legislative issue. I would like to work with legislators to make sure that we get some type of legislation passed that if a person comes into the United States illegally and they're found on public land, that they're charged with a felony. If they're charged with a felony, now they won't have an opportunity to become a citizen of the United States of America.
You know, I'm the proven conservative in this race. I'm the one who's walked the walk, not just talked the talk, stood in the fire and taken the hard votes. You'll see in my Senate record, I've been an active participant in all of the most conservative legislation that's come through the Senate. From a business standpoint, I've run successfully multiple small businesses. Practicing physician, one of them is my practice, one of them is a real estate business. I own agricultural, residential, and commercial property. So already understand stewarding our state lands a little bit as I run my ranch. And we think we're the proven one with the contacts and the knowledge to be able to run this office efficiently and well.
The day that the BLM showed up, Black Lives Matter, not the Bureau of Land Management, when Black Lives Matter showed up and they were ready to do damage at the Alamo, there was one person, one candidate there on the ground that day, standing with This Is Texas Freedom Force, and that was none other than Dr. Tim Westley. That story was picked up by Breitbart as well. So I'm not only qualified for those areas, but as we look when it comes down to emergency management and disaster relief and things of that nature, as a former nonprofit leader, I've been engaged. I was also trained to make sure I managed Red Cross facilities and things of that nature as a manager, frontline manager. And so those things are going to be important and crucial. So ultimately, across the board, when it comes down to things that the GLO is going to require of the next land commissioner on day one, you won't find another candidate that's well qualified, well versed, having done multiple things that's going to be needed on day one for that office.
So if you want to find out more about us, you can go to dawnbuckingham.com and all the information's there.
If you want to be involved in my campaign, I'm going to ask multiple things. One, to pray for the campaign. I'm a man of faith. I'm also a former pastor. And so that's one of the things I believe in. Secondly, I want to make sure people know if they go to our website, you can find me on Facebook at Dr. Tim Westley. You just Google that as well when it comes to Twitter and Instagram. If you see postings out there and you believe in what we're doing, share what we're doing, share it with others. Also, sign up for our newsletters on our website. That newsletter, you can find it at Texans. That's Texans, TEXANS, 4, Tim.com, TexansForTim.com.